Howdy, y'all. Swan, Marion, the bookworm cowboy, here to read to all of you from. Sorry. Here to read some more of The Serpent's Shadow by Rick Riordan. Let me read. Where was Chapter 4? I consult the pigeon of war. I was in love with a bird bath. Most guys check their phones for texts or are obsessed over what girls are saying about them online. Me, I couldn't stay away from the scrying bowl. It was just a bronze saucer on a stone pedestal, sitting on the balcony outside my bedroom. But whenever I was in my room, I found myself stealing glances at it, resisting the urge to rush outside and check a glimpse of Zia. The weird thing was, I couldn't even call her my girlfriend. What do you call someone when you fall in love with her replica Shapti, then rescue the real person, only to find she doesn't share your feelings? Sadie thinks her relationships are complicated. Over the past 6 months, since Zia had grown to help my first home, the bowl had been only I'd spent so many hours staring at it. I could hardly remember what she looked like without enchanted oil rippling across her face. By the time I reached the balcony, I was out of breath. From the surface of the oils, Zia stared up at me. Her arms were crossed, her eyes so angry, they looked like they might ignite. First crying bowl Walt had made actually did ignite, but that's another story. Carter, she said, I'm going to strangle you! She was beautiful when she threatened to kill me. Over the summer, she'd let her hair grow out so that it swept over her shoulders in a glossy black wave. She wasn't the Shopsy I was falling for, but her face still had a sculpted beauty. Delicate nose, full red lips, dazzling amber eyes. The skin glowed like terracotta warm from the kiln. Heard about Dallas, I guess. Zia, I'm sorry. Carter, everyone has heard about Dallas. Other gnomes. I've been sending Amos Ba messengers for the past hour, demanding answers. The distance as far away as Cuba felt rippling in the duat. Some claimed you blew up half of Texas. Some said the entire 51st gnome was destroyed. Some said you were dead. The concern in her voice lifted my spirits a little, but it also made me feel guiltier. I wanted to tell you this, I said, but by the time we realized the purposeless target was Dallas, we had to move immediately. I told her what had happened at the King Tut exhibit, including our mistakes and casualties. I tried to read Zia's expression, even after so many months. It was hard to guess what she was thinking. Just seeing her tended to short-circuit my brain. Half the time I could barely remember how to speak in complete sentences. She finally muttered something in Arabic, probably a curse. I'm glad you survived, but the 51st destroyed. She shook her head in disbelief. I knew Anne Grissom. She taught me healing magic when I was young. I remembered the pretty blonde lady who had played with the band, and the ruined celebrity. They were good people, I said. Some of our last allies. The rebels are already blaming you for their deaths. If any more gnomes desert Amos, she didn't have to finish that thought. Last spring, the worst one in the House of Ice formed the hit squad to destroy Brooklyn House. We defeated them. Amos had even given them amnesty when he became the new chief lector. Some refused to follow him. The rebels were still out there, gathering strength, turning other magicians against us, as if we needed more enemies. You're blaming me? I asked. Did they contact you? Worse, they broadcast a message to you. The oil rippled. I saw a different face. Sarah Jacoby, leader of the rebels. She had milky skin, spiky black hair, and dark, permanently startled eyes. Eyes lined with too much coal. In her pure white robe, she looked like a howling ghoul. She stood in a room lined with marble columns. Behind her glowed a half a dozen magicians, Jacoby's elite killers. I recognized the blue robes and shaven head of Kwai, who'd been exiled from the North Korean gnome for murdering a fellow magician. Next to him stood Petrovich, a scarred-faced Ukrainian who'd once worked as an assassin for our old enemy, Vlad Menshikov. The others I couldn't identify, but I doubted that any of them was as bad as Sarah Jacoby herself. Until Menshikov had released her, she'd been exiled in Antarctica for causing an Indian Ocean tsunami that killed more than 250,000 people. Carter Kane! She shouted. Because of this was a broadcast, I knew it was a magical recording. But her voice made me jump. The House of Life demands your surrender, she said. Your crimes are unforgivable. You must pay with your life. My stomach barely had time to drop before a series of violent images flashed from across the oil. I saw the Rosetta Stone exploding in the British Museum, the incident that had unleashed Seth and killed my father last Christmas. How had Jacoby gotten a visual of that? I saw the fight at Brooklyn House last night, and when Sadie and I had arrived in Ra's Sunbow to drive out Jacoby's hit squad, the images he showed made it look like we were the aggressors, a bunch of hooligans with godly power speeding up on poor Jacoby and her friends. You released Seth and his brethren, Jacoby narrated. You marked the most sacred rule of magic and cooperated with the gods. In doing so, you unbalanced Ma'at, causing the rise of Apophis. That's a lie! I said. Apophis was rising anyway. Then I remembered I was yelling at a video. The scenes kept shifting. I saw a high-rise building on fire in the Shibuya district of Tokyo headquarters of the 234th known. A flying demon with the head of a samurai sword crashed through a window and carried off a screaming magician. I saw the home of the old chief lector. Chief lector. Bugging right now. Yeah. I saw my first driving a beautiful Paris townhouse on the Rue Road to Pyramids, now in ruins. The roof had collapsed. The windows were broken. Ripped scrolls and soggy books littered the dead garden, and the hieroglyph for chaos smoldered on the front door like a cattle brand. All this you have caused, Jacoby said. You have given the chief lector mantle to a servant of evil. You have corrupted young magicians by teaching the path of the gods. You've weakened the house of life and left us at the mercy of Apophis. We will not stand for this. Any who follow you will be punished. Vision changed to Sphinx House in London, headquarters for the British Gnome. Sadie and I had visited there over the summer and managed to make peace with them after hours of negotiations. I saw Kwai storming through the library, smashing statues of the gods and raking books off the shelves. A dozen British magicians stood in chains before their conqueror, Sarah Jacoby, who held a gleaming black knife. The leader of the gnome, a harmless old guy named Sir Leicester, forced to his knees. Sarah Jacoby raised her knife. The blade fell and the scene shifted. Jacoby's ghoulish face stared up at me and from the surface of the corridor. You will be destroyed. Surrender yourself and your family for execution. We will spare your other followers as long as they renounce the path of the gods. I do not seek the office of chief lector, but I must take it for the good of Egypt. When the Kanes are dead, we will be strong and united again. We will undo the damage you've caused and send the gods and Apophis back to the Duat. Justice comes swiftly, Carter Kane. This will be your only warning. Sarah Jacoby image dissolved into earth, and I was alone again with fear reflections. Yeah, I said shakily. For a mass murderer, she's pretty convincing. Thea nodded. Jacoby has already turned or defeated most of our allies in Europe and Asia. A lot of the recent attacks against Paris, Tokyo, Madrid, those were Jacoby's work. And she's blaming them on Apophis or Brooklyn House. That's ridiculous. You and I know that. She agreed. The magicians are scared. Jacoby is telling them that he's like scared. If they're supposed to go back to the rock and things will return to normal. They want to believe it. She's telling them that following you is a death sentence. After the destruction of Dallas, I get it! I snapped. It wasn't fair for me to get mad at Thea, but I felt so helpless. Everything we did could turn out wrong. I imagined Apophis laughing in the underworld. Maybe that's why he hadn't attacked the House of Life in the first place. He was having too much fun watching us tear each other apart. I didn't Jacoby direct her message at Amos, I asked. He is the chief lector. Thea glanced away as if checking on something. I couldn't see much of her surroundings, but she didn't seem to be in the dorm room at the first meal, or in the Hall of Ages. Like Jacoby said, they consider Amos a servant of evil. They won't talk to him. Because he was upset, of course. That wasn't his fault. He's been healed. Fine. Healed. What? I asked. It is fine, isn't it? Carter, it's complicated. Look, the main problem is Jacoby. She's taken over Menshikov's old base in St. Petersburg. It's almost as much as of a fortress as the first known. We don't know what she's up to or how many magicians she has. We don't know when she'll attack or where, but she's going to attack soon. Justice will come swiftly. This will be your only warning. Something told me Jacoby wouldn't attack a Brooklyn house again, or after she'd been humiliated last time. But if she wanted to take over the House of Life and destroy the Kanes, what else could her target be? I locked eyes with her and I realized what she was thinking. No, I had said. They'd never attacked the first gnome. That would be suicide. Survival for 5,000 years. Carter was weaker than you realized. You were never fully staffed. Now many of our best we've got some old men and a few skilled children left. Plus Amos and you. Aspiration. And half the time I'm stuck here. Wait, I said. Where are you? Somewhere to ZSF, a man's voice broke over. Hello? Yes, like, great. He's up from his nap. An old man stuck his face in the stand and gave himself with his teeth. His bald, wrinkly head made him look like a geriatric baby. Zebras are here! He opened his mouth and tried to suck the oil out of the bowl, making the whole thing ripple. My Lord God, my Lord, no! He told him that you can't drink the enchanted oil. We talked about this. Here, have a cookie. Cookies! The old man danced off with a tasty treat in his hands. Be a senile grandfather? Nope. That was Ra, god of the sun, first divine pharaoh of Egypt and arch enemy of the Prophets. Last spring we'd gone on a quest to find him and revive him from his twilight sleep, trusting he would rise in all his glory and fight the chaos snake for us. Instead, Ra woke up senile and demented. He was excellent at gumming biscuits, drooling, and singing nonsense songs. Finding a purpose, not someone. You're babysitting again? I asked. He shrugged. It's after sunrise here. Horus and Isis watch him most nights on the sunboat. But during the day, well, Ra gets upset if I don't come visit him. Come to visit. None of the other gods want to watch him. I'm tired. She lowered her voice. I'm afraid of what they do if I let Ra alone with them. They're getting tired of him. Ra said in the background. My heart sank. There are another thing to feel guilty about. I saddled Zia with nanny duty for a sun god, stuck in the throne room of the gods every day, helping Amos run the first home every night. Zia barely had time to sleep, much less go on the date, even if I could get up the courage to ask her. Of course, that wouldn't matter if a prophet destroyed the world, or if Jacoby and the magical killers got to me. For a moment I wondered if Jacoby was right. If the world had gone sideways because we chose on me, and if it would be better off without us. I felt so hopeless. I recently considered counting on the power of Horus. I could have used some of the war god's courage and confidence. I suspected that joining my cause with Horus was a good idea. My emotions were jumbled. Enough without another voice in my head egging me on. I know that expression, he had chided. You can't blame yourself, Carlos. If it wants for you then always for the world. There's still hope. Plan B, I thought. Unless we could figure out this mystery about shadows and how they could be used we'd be stuck with Plan B, which meant certain death for Sadie and me even if it worked. But I wasn't going to tell Zia that. She didn't need the more depressing news. You're right, I said. We'll figure something out. I'll be back at the first film tonight. Call me there. So we should talk about something rumble behind it. Like a stone slab grinding across the floor. Jobeck's here, she whispered. I hate that guy. Talk later. Wait, Zia! I said, talk about what? The veil turned dark. Zia was gone. I needed to sleep. Going in the Brooklyn house was amazing. Comfortable beds, HD TVs, high-speed wireless internet, and magically restocking the menu fridges. And how many rooms, mops, and dusters kept everything tidy. The closets were always full of clean, perfectly fitting clothes. Still, my room felt like a cave. Maybe that's because I had a baboon for a roommate. Fufu wasn't here much. Usually downstairs with Cleo or letting the ankle biters groom. The ankle biters. Letting the ankle biters groom his fur. But there was a baboon-shaped depression on his bed, a box of Cheerios on the nightstand, and a tire swing installed in the corner of the room. Sadie had done that last part as a joke, but Kufu loved it so much I couldn't take it down. The thing was, I got used to his being around. Now that he spent most of his time with the kindergartners, I missed him. He'd grown on me in an endearingly annoying way. Kind of like my sister. Yes, Sadie, you saw that one coming. Screen through the pictures floating across my laptop monitor. There was my dad at a site in Egypt, looking relaxed and in charge in his khaki fatigues. His sleeves rolled up on his dark, muscular arms as he showed off the broken stone head of some pharaoh statue. Dad's bald scalp and goatee made him look slightly devilish when he smiled. Another picture showed Uncle Amos on stage at a jazz club, playing his saxophone. He wore round dark glasses, a blue pork pie hat, and a matching silk suit, impeccably tailored as always. His cornrows were braided with sapphires. I never actually seen Amos play on stage, but I like this photo because he looked so energetic and happy, unlike he did these days, with the weight of leadership on his shoulders. Unfortunately, the photo also reminded me of Anne Grissom, a Texas musician with her fiddle, having so much fun earlier this evening just before she died. The screensaver changed. I saw my mom bouncing me on her knee when I was a baby. I had this ridiculous fro back then, which Sadie always teased me about. In the photo, I'm wearing a blue onesie stained with pureed yams. I'm holding my mom's thumbs, looking startled as she bounces me up and down, and like I'm thinking, "Get me off this ride!" My mom is as beautiful as always, even in a t-shirt and jeans. Her hair tied back in a bandana. She smiles down at me like I'm the most wonderful thing in her life. That photo hurt to look at, but I kept looking at it. I remember what Sadie had told me, that something was affecting the spirits of the dead. We might not see our mom again unless we figured it out. I took a deep breath. My dad, my uncle, my mom, all of them powerful magicians. All had sacrificed so much to restore the house of life. They were older, wiser, and stronger than me. They'd had decades to practice magic. Sadie and I had 9 months. Yet we needed to do something that no magician had ever managed. Defeat Apophis himself. I went to my closet and took down my old traveling case. It was just a black leather carry-on bag, like a million others you might see in an airport. For years I lugged it around the world as I traveled with my dad. He trained me to live with only possessions I could carry. I opened the suitcase. It was empty now, except for one thing. A statuette of a coiled serpent carved in red granite, engraved in hieroglyphics. And the purpose was blocked out. Most powerful binding spells. But still, the statuette was the most dangerous object in the whole house. A representation of the enemy. Baby, Walt, and I made this thing in secret over a vast jungle dolphins. I would say, yeah. We'd only trusted Walter because we needed his charm-making skills. Not even Amos would have approved such a dangerous experiment. One mistake, one miscast spell, and this statue could be turned from a weapon against Apophis into a gateway allowing him free access to Brooklyn House. But we had to take the risk, unless we found some other means of defeating the serpent. Sadie and I would have to use this statue for Plan B. Foolish idea, said a voice up from the balcony. A pigeon was perched on the railing. There was something very unpigeon-like about its stare. It looked fearless, almost dangerous, and I recognized that voice, which was more manly and warlike than you'd normally expect from a member of the dove family. Horace? I asked. Pigeon bobbed his head. May I come in? I knew he wasn't just asking out of courtesy. The house was heavily enchanted to keep out unwanted pests like rodents, termites, and Egyptian gods. I give you permission to enter, I said formally. Horace, in the form of pigeon. Thank you. The pigeon hopped off the railing and waddled inside. Why? I asked. Horace ruffled his feathers. Well, I looked for a falcon, but they're a little scarce in New York. I wanted something with wings, so a pigeon seemed the best choice. They've adapted well to cities, aren't scared of people. The noble birds, don't you think? Noble? I agree. That's the first word that comes to mind when I think of pigeons. Indeed, Horace said. Apparently sarcasm didn't exist in ancient Egypt, because Horace never seemed to get it. He fluttered onto my bed and pecked at a few Cheerios left over from Khufu's lunch. Hey, I warned, if you poop on my blankets, please, war gods do not poop on blankets, well, except for that one time. Forget I said anything. Horace hopped to the edge of my suitcase. He peered down at the statuette of Apophis. Dangerous, he said. Much too dangerous, Carter. Anne told him about Plan B, but I wasn't surprised that he knew. Horace and I shared minds too many times. The better I got at channeling his powers, the better we understood each other. The downside of godly magic was that I couldn't always shut off that connection. It's our emergency backup, I said. We're trying to find another way. I'm looking for that scroll, he recalled. The last copy of which burned up tonight in Dallas. I resisted the urge to spike the pigeon. Yes, but Sadie found this shadow box. She thinks it's some sort of clue. You wouldn't know anything about using shadows against Apophis, would you? Pigeon turned its head sideways. Not really. My understanding of magic is fairly straightforward. Hit enemies with a sword until they're dead. If they rise again, hit them again. Repeat as necessary. We worked against Set. After how many years of fighting? The pigeon glared at me. What's your point? I decided to avoid an argument. Horus was a war god. He loved to fight. But it had taken him years to defeat Set. The god of evil. And Set was small stuff next to Apophis, the primordial force. Of chaos. Whacking Apophis with a sword wasn't going to work. I thought about something Bass had said earlier in the library. Would Toth know more about shadows? I asked. Probably. Forceful. Toth isn't good for much except suddenly must be those scrolls. He regarded the serpent figurine. Funny. I just remembered something. Back in the old days, the Egyptians used the same word for statue and shadow, because they're both smaller copies of an object. They were both called shadows. What are you trying to tell me? Pigeon ruffled its feathers. Ruffled its feathers. Nothing. It just occurred to me, looking at that statue while we were talking about shadows. Now I see feelings spread between my shoulder blades. Shadows. Statues. Last spring, Sadie and I watched as the old chief lector, the Jardins, cast an execration spell on Apophis, even against minor demons. Execration spells were dangerous. They're supposed to destroy a small statue of the target, and in doing so, utterly destroy the target itself, erasing it from the world. Make a mistake, and things start exploding, including the magician who cast it. Down in the underworld, the Jardins had to use a makeshift figurine against Apophis. Chief Lecter had died casting the execration, and had only managed to push Apophis a little deeper into the Duat. Sadie had hoped that with a more powerful statue, both of us working together might be able to execrate Apophis completely, or at least throw him so deep into the Duat that he never returned. That was plan B. But we knew such a powerful spell would tap out so many energy, it would cost us our lives. Unless we found another way. Statues as statues. Shadows as statues as shadows. Shadows as statues. Plan C was forming in my mind, and an idea so crazy I didn't want to put it into words. Horus, I said carefully, does Apophis have a shadow? The pigeon blinked its red eyes. What a question. Why would you? He glanced down at the red statue. Oh, that's clever actually. Certifiably insane, but clever. You think Setna's version of the book of overcoming Apophis, the one Apophis was so anxious to destroy, You think it contained a secret spell for? I don't know. But it's worth, I said, it's worth asking Tulse. Maybe he knows something. Maybe, Horace said grudgingly. But I still think a frontal assault is the way to go. Of course you do, Pigeon Bob had said. We are strong enough, you and I. We should combine forces, Carter. Let me share your form as I once did. We could lead the armies of gods and men and defeat the serpent. Together we'll rule the world. The idea might have been more tempting if I hadn't been looking at a plump bird with Cheerio dust on its plumage. Thinking pigeon ruled the world sounded like a bad idea. I'll get back to you on that, I said. First I should talk to Chloe. Bah! Norris flapped his wings. He's still in Memphis, at that ridiculous sports stadium of his. But if you plan on seeing him, I wouldn't wait too long. Why not? That's what I came to tell you, Horace said. Matters are getting complicated among the gods. Prophus is dividing us, attacking us one by one. And just as he's doing with your magicians, Thoth was the first to suffer. Suffer? How? The pigeon puffed up. A wisp of smoke curled from its beak. Oh dear, my host is self-destructing. I can't hold my spirit for much longer. Just hurry, Carter. I'm having trouble keeping the gods together. That old man Ra isn't helping at our morale. If you and I don't lead our army soon, we may not have any armies left to lead. But the pigeon woke up another wisp of smoke. Gotta go. Good luck. Horace flew out the window, leaving me alone with the statuette of Prophus and a few gray feathers. Hold on. Yeah. I slept like a mummy. That was the good part. The bad part was that Bass let me sleep until the afternoon. Why didn't you wake me up? I demanded. I got things to do. Bass spread her hands. Sadie insisted. We had a rough night last night. She said you needed your rest. Besides, I'm a cat. I respect the sanctity of sleep. I was still mad, but part of me knew Sadie was right. I've expended a lot of magical energy the previous night and had gone to sleep really late. Maybe, just maybe, Sadie had my best interests at heart. I just caught her making faces at me, so maybe not. I showered and dressed. By the time the other kids got back from school, I was feeling almost human again. Yes, I said school, as in normal old school. We'd spent last room tutoring all the initiates at Brooklyn House, but with the start of the fall semester, the kids, Basler decided that the kids could have a dose of regular and mortal life. Mortal life. Now that they went to a nearby academy in Brooklyn during the day and learned magic in the afternoons and on the weekends, I was the only one who stayed behind. I'd always been homeschooled. The idea of dealing with lockers, schedules, textbooks, and cafeteria food on top of learning the concepts and was just too much for me. You'd think all the other kids would. The other kids would have complained, especially Sadie. In fact, attending school was working out okay for them. The girls were happy to have more friends and less dorky boys to flirt with, they claimed. The guys could play sports with actual teams rather than one-on-one with Khufu, using Egyptian statues for hoops. As for Beth, she was happy to have a quiet house so she could stretch out on the floor and snooze in the sunlight. At any rate, by the time the others got home, I'd done a lot of thinking about my conversations with Thea and Horace. The plan I'd formulated last night still seemed crazy. I decided that it might be our best shot. After briefing Sadie and Bass, who disturbingly agreed with me, we decided it was time to tell the rest of our friends. We gathered for dinner on the main terrace. It's a nice place to eat, with invisible barriers that keep out the wind, and a great view of the East River and Manhattan. The food magically appeared, and it was always tasty. Still, I dreaded eating on the terrace. For 9 months, we'd had all our important meetings there. I'd come to associate sit-down games with disasters. We filled up our plates from the buffet as our guardian albino crocodile, Philip of Macedonia, splashed happily in his swimming pool. Being next to a 20-foot-long crocodile took some getting used to, but Philip was well trained. He only ate bacon, stray waterfowl, and the occasional invading monster. Bass sat at the head of the table with a can of cream and a fancy feast. Sadie and I sat together at the opposite end. Khufu was off babysitting ankle biters, and some of our newest recruits were inside doing their homework or catching up on spellcrafting. Most of our main people were present, a dozen senior initiates. Considering how badly last night that turned out, everyone seemed in strangely good spirits. I was kind of glad they didn't yet know about Sarah Jacoby's video death threats. Julian kept bouncing in his chair and grinning for no particular reason. Theo and Jazz were whispering together and giggling. Even Felix seemed to have recovered from his shock in Dallas. He was sculpting tiny sharp-toothed penguins out of his mashed potatoes and bringing them to life. Only Walt looked gone. The big guy had nothing on his dinner plate except 3 carrots and a wedge of jello. Khufu insisted jello had major healing properties. Judging from the tightness around Walt's eyes and the stiffness of his movements, I guess his pain was even worse than last night. I turned to Sadie. I said, "What's going on? Everyone seems distracted." She seemed to stare at me. "I keep forgetting you don't go to school," he called her. "It's the first dance in like There's almost 3 other schools here think that. We can hurry up to the meeting, can't we? You're kidding, I said. I'm thinking about plans for doomsday. You're worried about being late to a dance. I've mentioned it to you a dozen times, she insisted. Besides, we need something to boost our spirits. Now tell everyone your plans. Some of us still have to decide what to wear. I wanted to argue, but the others were looking at me expectantly. I cleared my throat. Okay, I know there's a dance, but at 7, Jazz said, you are coming, right? Smile. Was she 30? She just called me dense. They have other things on my mind. So other ways. I stammered. We need to talk about what happened in Dallas and what happens next. That killed the mood. The smiles faded. My friends listened as I reviewed our mission to the 51st gnome, the reflection of the book of overcoming a purpose, and the retrieval of the salad box. I told them about the urge of Kobe's commitment and the turmoil among the gods that Horace had mentioned. Sadie stepped in. She explained her weird encounter with the face in the wall. 2 gods. Encounter with the face in the wall. The 2 gods and our ghost mother. She shared her gut feeling that our best chance to defeat the purpose had something to do with shadows. Cleo raised her hand. So, the rebel magicians have a death warrant all on for you. Gods can't help us. Purpose could arise at any time, and the last scroll might have helped us to defeat him and been destroyed. We shouldn't worry, because we have an empty box and a fake hunch about shadows. Why, Cleo? Bass said with admiration. We have a cloudy side. Just my hand against the surface of the table. It would have taken a very low effort to summon my strength to Taurus and smash the kindling. I doubted that would help the reputation of the conflicted leader. This is more than a vague hunch, I said. Look, you've all learned about the execration spells, right? Our crocodiles, Philip grunted. He slapped the pool with his tail and made it rain on our dinner. That's a creature a little sensitive about the word execration. Julian dabbed the water off his grilled cheese sandwich. Dude, you can't execrate Apophis. He's massive. The Shardens tried it and got killed. I know, I said. With a standard execration, you could destroy a statue that represents the enemy. But what if you could just crank up the spell by destroying a more powerful representation? Something more connected to Apophis. Paul sat forward, suddenly interested. His shadow? Felix was so startled that he dropped his spoon, crushing one of his mashed potato penguins. Wait, what? I got the idea from Horace, I said. He told me statues were called shadows in ancient times. But that was just like symbolic, wasn't it? Bass set down her empty fancy feast can. She still looked nervous about the whole topic of shadows. When I explained to her that it was either this or Sadie and me dying, she agreed to support us. Maybe not, the cat goddess said. I'm no expert on execration, mind you, nasty business. But it's possible that a statue used for execution was originally meant to represent the target's shadow, which is an important part of the soul. So Sadie said, we could cosmic execration scale on a purpose. Instead of destroying a statue, we could destroy his actual shadow. That's nuts, Quinn said. How do you destroy a shadow? Well, let's shoot a masked penguin away from his shadow. It's not nuts. Sympathetic magic is about using a small copy to manipulate the actual target. It's possible the whole tradition of making little statues to represent people and gods. Maybe at one time, the statues actually contained the target's shadow. There are lots of stories about the souls of the gods inhabiting statues. If a shadow was trapped in a statue, you might be able to destroy it. Could you make a statue like that? Mr. asked. Something that could blind the shadow of Apophis himself? Maybe. Most of the folk at the table didn't know we'd already made a statue of Apophis that might work for that purpose. Even if we could, we need to find the shadow. Then we'd need some pretty advanced magic to capture it and destroy it. Find the shadow? Phoenix smiled nervously, like he style hoped we were joking. Wouldn't it be right under him? How do you capture it? Step on it, shine a light on it? It'll be more complicated than that, I said. This ancient magician sent me. The guy who wrote his own version of the book of overcoming Apophis. I think he must have created a spell to catch and destroy shadows. That's why Apophis was so anxious to burn the evidence. That's his secret weakness. The scroll is gone now, Theo said. There's still someone we can ask, Paul said. Toth. If anyone knows the answers, he will. Tension around the table seemed to ease. At least we'd given our initiates something to hope for. Even if it was a long shot, I was grateful we had Walt on our side. His charm-making ability might be our only hope of finding a shadow of the statue, and his vote of confidence carried weight with the other kids. We need to visit Toth right away, I said. Tonight. Yes, said Yuki. Sit down. I glared at her. You aren't serious. Oh yes, brother dear. She my smile mischievously. And for a second I was afraid she might invoke my secret name and force me to stay. We're playing your dance tonight, and you're coming with us. Yep. And with that, we end on this note, with this chapter.